Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica, and in today's video I'm going to be going over my reading from the second half of July. I'm just going to do the wrap up like I usually do, and yeah, so these are the books that I read in July. So I did my first half. I'll link that video down below if you haven't yet checked it out. But let's just get into the stats, and then I'll go over my 4 to 4.5 to 5-star reads. So in the month of July, I read 40 books. I had 7 5-stars, 10 4.5 stars, 11 4 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 3 3 stars, 2 books that I left unrated, 1 book I DNF'd, and I had 2 rereads. I read or listened to 8 ARCs or ALCs. So breaking down how I consumed my books, I had 38 audiobooks, 1 ebook, and 1 physical book. And for genre breakdown, I had read 3 historical romances, 10 contemporary romances, 3 sports romances, 4 romantic suspense, 1 mafia romance, 7 paranormal romances, 5 romanticies, 1 cozy mystery, 4 historical fictions, 1 thriller book, and 1 nonfiction book. So I have a little more than just romance this in July, so that's good. So let's get to the books themselves. So the first book that I read in the second half of July that I gave 4 stars was Daisy Jones and the Six. I did a whole vlog on this, and I'll link that vlog down below. But I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really well done. It definitely created the atmosphere of the time period of the 60s, and it had a lot of angst, and it had a lot of drama, and the characters were terrible, but I would definitely read more from Taylor Jenkins Reid. And if you didn't know, this was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book. So the next book I read after the Taylor Jenkins Reid book is A Promise to Arlette by Serena Burdick, and I gave that one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I loved the time period and how it was written, and I loved how the author talked about the art scene in the 1930s in Paris and the salons and stuff. I really liked that. I really did empathize with our main character. So anyway, there was some stuff that was pretty horrific. All that is down in that vlog, and it is still linked down below. And another one that's in that vlog that I read for the historical fiction readathon, it was The Veil of Violence. This is book 2 in the Fae of the Roaring Twenties series, and I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely adore this one. This is, again, we're following Addie and Jack. Jack is a Fae, and Addie, we did not know what she is at the beginning. We have an idea, but we don't completely know. There's a lot of twists and turns in this one, and it is a really well done book, and it's a really good sequel to the Prince of Prohibition, which I also gave 5 stars. My full thoughts are in that video, in that vlog. So if you want to check it out, it's linked down below. The next book that I read, I gave 4.5 stars, and that was Over the Moon by Laura Pavlov. This one is book 3 in the Rosewood River series, and this one is a sports romance where Clark Chadwick is a NFL. He just won the Stanley Cup, and he's back home in a small town where he has his house and in his own personal gym, and his physical therapist for the team, she comes to help work with him to rehabilitate and condition him so he can play in the coming season. And that physical therapist, her name is Eloise, and she is the coach's daughter, and it is forbidden because there is a no fraternization clause, and it goes from there. They really do fall head over heels in love. There is definitely some sneaking around, which I love the sneaking around. I really enjoyed Eloise as a character. I really enjoyed Clark as a character. He was such a cinnamon roll. He was just fantastic. I enjoyed this book very much, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then I read A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangyu Manadana, and I hope I said her name right. This, I believe, is my first book from her, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved the vibes. I love the characters. This is about our main heroine, Sarah. She lost her magic when she was, I think, 15 because she broke magical law to help someone come back to life. And she is basically running this inn now with her found family, and in comes Luke and his little sister Posey, and his little sister Posey is autistic, and the autism representation in this is so good. I absolutely adore Posey's characterization. I adored her as a character. I loved how she was written with her, I loved how she was written to be very independent and that she can think for herself. And she's very blunt. It's very, the autistic traits that were written in as Posey were spot on. I just absolutely loved it. I loved Luke as a character. He's fantastic. He's a little more grumpy. He has a lot going on, and him and Sarah have a great little romance. I loved their romance, and I think it was just warm and cozy. And we had the other found family members in who are at the inn, because the inn was magical. You couldn't get to the inn unless you needed to be at the inn. And one of my favorite characters also was Nicholas, who was a knight in shining armor, but not really, but he was just, I absolutely loved his character. I had so much fun with this. I loved it so much, and I would highly recommend it if you want something a little more cozy when we're going into the fall season. And then the next book I read was A Body at the Book Fair by Ellie Alexander. This is book 6 in a secret bookcase mystery series, and this is the ending to that series. This one, Annie is our protagonist. She's been our protagonist since book 1, and her best friend Scarlett was killed. We know that from book 1, and we're trying to find out who killed her. And we do find out who killed her, and she does solve that mystery, but she also solves another mystery where someone who was killed when they were at this book, it was a book festival, okay? And so she was there as a private eye with her friend and her business partner Fletcher and her boyfriend, and it was a good time. I enjoyed it. This series is a really solid series if you like cozy mysteries. And then I read House of Blight by Maxime M. Martineau, and I read this for a book club, and I was in the minority. I gave 4.5 stars. I really loved the gothic vibes on this. This is the Thread Mender Chronicles. I loved the magic system specifically with our heroine, Adira, and if she used up too much of her magic, she would die. It would take time, minutes, hours, even years off her life, depending on the level of healing that she could do. Hey guys, sorry about that. I had a phone call that I had to take. It was really important. I know I was talking about House of Blight. So I really loved the gothic vibes in the House of Blight. Fernglove Manor just reminded me of Thornfield Hall from Jane Eyre, the eeriness and the creepy inhabitants and all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. I did like the love triangle, which most people don't, but it's fine, between Orlin and his brother Ulrich. And some of the names were kind of interesting, like the fairies, because I saw them as like fae, but they're called Evers, which I was like, why don't you just call them fae? But anyway, I enjoyed it. It was fun, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then I had an ALC of Midnight Between Us by Claudia Burgoa. This is book 4 in the Timber Bridge Brothers series, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I have given the first, well, I haven't read the first one yet. I gave the second 2 books in this series 5 stars, and this one is 4.5 stars. This is Simone Monroe and Keir Timberbridge. They were childhood friends and lovers, and then he leaves all this. There's a lot of baggage. He has a very bad sense of self because of his father, how his father taught him to see himself. So he left her, and now they re-meet, but he is nearly dead, tied up and gagged in the back of a trunk. So she saves his life, and then she ends up having to stay with him to help him rehabilitate from all the injuries because of her employers. You need to stay with him. And she's like, fine. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want that baggage to come back up. This is extremely angsty. This is romantic suspense because you have the overarching romantic suspense plot, the suspense plot from the first 3 books. The thing is there's almost no spice in this book. It happens at the very end, and it works. It works because they have to communicate. They have to tell their secrets of what happened, and she has to come clean with some stuff, and they do so by letters. He finds letters that she wrote him, and he finds out some big stuff that he never knew, and then they start writing each other because he leaves her after he finds out those big stuff. This is a very slow burn because he had to deal with his demons. She had to come to terms with everything that happened, and there's definitely forced proximity with him having to be near her because of how bad off he was. I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. This one might not be for everybody, but I really liked it. So I loved the characters in this one. And then I went on to the Gallagher's of Ardmore series. So book 1 is Jewels of the Sun. And this one I gave 4 stars, and it's had a lot of Celtic lore. Like, these are Celtic lore. So this one is Jude Murray. She goes to Ireland after she's divorced. And it's a very magical place. There's a fae who rides a white stallion, and there is this curse about these lovers. One of them was the fae prince who rides the white stallion, and it was between him and a mortal woman. In order for the curse to break, and for the fae prince and this mortal woman who's been dead for 300 years, 3 lovers have to come to terms and be together. And the first one is between Aidan Gallagher and Jude Murray. They meet. He is a publican. He owns the pub, and they just bond over the local lore and stuff, and they're attracted to each other. She just doesn't trust men because of what happened with her ex, and she eventually gets over it. He's very domineering. I mean, he's a Nord type of a hero, so I enjoyed that one. Then I went on to Tears of the Moon, which is book 2 in the Gallagher's of Ardmore series, and I gave that one 4 stars. This one is between Sean and Brenna. Brenna is Sean's sister's best friend, and they grew up together. She's a carpenter, very pragmatic, whereas Sean is very emotionally driven. He writes lyrics and stuff, and there's a lot of good banter, and he falls first. I really liked the fae element in the first book, and we get a little more nuggets of what actually happened between Aidan and Jude from the first book, because of the fae element, and it sort of happens again in this book, and it's very atmospheric, and it was just a fun time. I gave it 4 stars. And then I went on to the last book, which is The Heart of the Sea, and this one is about Darcy Gallagher, who are Sean and Aidan's sister, and this very rich man named Trevor McGee, and she challenged him. He was a bumbling mess around Darcy, and I absolutely love Darcy. She is a firecracker. I absolutely love her character. She's a lot of fun. Trevor McGee, he really wanted to know more about his Irish ancestry and stuff, and I really liked it. The only thing is that they just needed to work on their communication skills more, and she kind of needed to go to anger management just a little bit, but I gave that one 4 stars. So the next one I read was The Brightest Light of Sunshine by Lizzie Coney. If I was the type of reader who would actually go and change my review, I probably would, because I originally just gave it 4 stars. I really loved Grace as a character. She had a hard time being around men because of something that's tragic that happened to her 4 years earlier. She goes to get a tattoo. So when she meets Cal, our hero, he's 30 years old. There are some things that I didn't quite like why does a 30-year-old want to be at a frat party? And we were talking about that in some sprints, and I honestly, that's one of the things that did bother me, and it still bothers me. I didn't let that really reflect in my review or my rating, and if I had, it would go down. But there's a couple other little things that started bugging me when I started thinking about this more, especially after those sprints. But I'm keeping it at 4 stars, and I really like Cal. He is such a solid character. His little sister has been neglected by her mother and his stepfather, and he ends up having to take custody of her. There's a lot of angsty stuff in this. The thing that I really liked about Grace is that she would not let Cal get away with things. She stood up to him, specifically at the end when he was kind of being a jackass. And she's like, I'm gonna give you time. And when you come to your senses, come talk to me. It took him, I think 45 days, but hey. And then I read The Art of Avoiding Your Werewolf by Lola Glass. This is book 1 in the Wild Woods series. And it was a lot of fun. Levine, which she goes by Love, is new to town. She was a human that was turned into a werewolf vampire hybrid. And then you have Archer, who is a centuries old alpha who is well respected. They called Archer. His nickname was Mad. And they knew right away that they were fated mates. And the story was good. It was very, very low angst. Not a lot happened, but I had a fun time with it. And that was really kind of a great fated mates werewolf vampire shifter romance. So I will be continuing with that series as soon as I get some more holds for Hoopla. And then I read Denim and Diamonds by Vi Keelan and Penelope Ward, and I gave this one 4 stars. They had a really good setup where our heroine, February, that's her name, she is at this retreat because the board of her company decides that she needs to take a mental health break. So she goes to this retreat for mental health reasons, but she had enough and snuck out by climbing down a ladder, went to a bar, and woke up from being drunk in Brock's bed. This is in small town Maine, and I will say this, they did a good job with the depictions of Maine. Small town Maine, the way they talked wasn't completely small town Maine, but you wouldn't know that if you hadn't. I grew up in small town Maine, so I kind of knew, but that's okay. Like, I'm not holding it against anybody. But anyway, I really liked how Penelope Ward and Vi Keelan decided to explore the conflict between what happens unexpectedly and why people may want children and may not want children, and if it's a deal breaker for someone and or is it not, and how do you know until you get into that type of a situation. And that's really what the main plot is about. So Brock and February, they really are attracted to each other, and as she's continuing at this little retreat, she does continue to sneak out to see him, and they fall in love, and they decide that they were going to try and do a long distance thing because she lives in New York City. She has like $1 million handbag company that she created, and then he finds out that he's going to be a father from another woman. And that was where the conflict comes in. And I actually thought the conflict was well done and it was well executed, and the way Brock and February talked to each other, it was well done. Like, there's a good communication in this book. So I gave that one 4 stars. And then the last book that I do want to talk about before I end this video, it is The House of My Mother by Sherry Franke. This is a memoir, so this is nonfiction. And this one, I'm giving it 5 stars, but it's not going to be a favorite because I cannot say that it would ever be a favorite. So this is, if you don't know, this is Sherry Franke is the oldest daughter of Ruby Franke. Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrand, they were convicted in Utah of extreme child neglect and abuse. They were starving these kids, her kids, and Jody was basically running a cult, and Ruby was a mommy blogger to begin with, and so Sherry, she starts talking about how it affected her personally. She decided to leave her siblings out of it because it's their stories, and I wholly respect that, because she didn't want to put their stories out without their permission. So we see it from her point of view, how she was basically kicked out of her family. She was abused and neglected. Like, her mother told her that they could not be friends because she's her mother, but they could be friends when she gets married and has a baby, when she becomes a mother. I was like, what are you doing, lady? Sherry was preyed upon by an older man in his 50s who essayed her. she had, you know, the fight, flight, you fight, you flight, or you freeze. There's one more, and she talks about it's called the fawn. So the fawn is the type of reaction where you are trying to make everybody okay. You are trying to make everything is okay. Her mother would always explode at her and her siblings, and specifically her and Chad. And he used that. He saw her already hurt. He saw that she just wanted to make things okay for everybody, even at the expense of herself. The way she was manipulated and abused for the first 22 years of her life is unacceptable. And I cried in this book. I absolutely do recommend you read this book, but I couldn't say it's a favorite because I was crying because I was so mad on behalf of Sherry Frankie, and I can't talk about it anymore. So anyway, those are the books that I read at the second half of July. If, again, all my first half books were, that video is linked down below. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know all the things. And if you made it this far into this video and you want to let me know that you're here, please leave me a bow emoji, a pink bow emoji. And until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.